WhiskyCast. Proudly brought to you by Redbreast, the definitive single pot-still Irish whiskey. Join the Stillhouse at singlepotstill.com and receive an exclusive whiskey tasting journal.
Welcome to another episode of WhiskyCast HD. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this time around I'm in Atlantic City. You'll find a lot of great bars up and down the boardwalk, but if you want to find Atlantic City's best whiskey bar, well, you won't find it in this Atlantic City. Now this is more like it. Welcome to Atlantic City, Wyoming. We're about 1.5 miles above sea level in the mountains of southwestern Wyoming. And like that other Atlantic City at the beach, the population grows here a bit during the summertime too. A little more than 57, not much though. They came here for gold back in the late 1860s. The gold rush kicked off around here with mines all over the area and an active mine still going today right up over the ridge. On the second Saturday of every month though, people come to Atlantic City for a different kind of gold. The single malt whiskeys at the Miner's Delight Inn. The whiskey flowed like water in Atlantic City during the gold rush days. In fact, the real Calamity Jane worked as a dance hall girl here. But the boom and bust cycle of mining took its toll over the years. Bob and Barbara Townsend bought the Miner's Delight Inn bed and breakfast in 2006 after they retired from the Air Force, and Bob wanted to have a bar full of single malts.
There were quite a number of bottles of the most rot gut things you've ever seen in your life. And it took us several years of really cheap sales to get rid of that stuff.
Thank you.
Laura?
Bob started with the 6 most expensive single malts in the state of Wyoming's inventory and some help.
We had a Scotsman stay with us the first summer we were here. For 8 nights, he was a geologist working on a drilling crew. Every night he'd come in and he'd say, I have to have me 2 wee drams. And then he'd go out to his cabin and do his work for the day to document what they had found that day. When he left us a list of single malts that he would recommend we add to our 6. So we started with a few of the ones that he recommended. And he was from the island of Isla, so all of them were from Isla. And we now have every Isla distillery represented on the back bar, thanks to David. I still email him. He lives in Thailand now. But I still email him and blame all of this on him.
Bob built the bar himself using lumber from old snow fences. The top was handcrafted from a piece of aspen by a furniture maker down the road. And Bob's whiskey selection started to grow.
I said, we'll never have more than 20 on the back bar. And she learned not to believe me when I said, well, okay, we'll never have more than 30. And then it was 40, and now it's 86. And we won't have more than 86 because I'm not going to reconfigure the back bar again.
Space size are the ones that I like.
And the crowds on the second Saturday of each month started to grow too. As word spread, they started coming from farther and farther away. Atlantic City is 268 miles from Salt Lake City, 381 miles from Denver. Whiskey lovers from both cities regularly make the trip to Atlantic City, but they've come from a lot farther away just for second Saturday.
And I'll get you started. Okay. Do they not have it? There's one. Oh, it's all one word. Yeah.
The tastings are as informal as Atlantic City. You can sit at the bar and chat, or sit by yourself to contemplate a dram. Bob picks the first 3. Tonight, a signatory bottling of Craigellachie 13-year-old, followed by the Kilkerran Work in Progress 2012 edition, and Ard Begg's 10-year-old.
I haven't smoked it.
Yeah.
It's fun when we get it
What do you
delivered
think?
because we have to.
Len Brown didn't have to come from far away for the tasting. He just had to take a leap of faith.
Lived here, been around here since the middle 1950s, and I've been interested. I come by and have a beer occasionally, and I've been interested in these scotches, Bob's scotches, and all the different selections and varieties, so I decided to give it a try.
Len's leaving a confirmed Scotch drinker, but he was skeptical when the Townsends started the second Saturday tastings.
I thought he was nuts. Nobody ever heard of Scotch around here. It was all cheap bar whiskey and beer. I do some cowboying, and you know, my cowboy friends, they aren't too much into Scotch. But you know, some of us have to experiment and do some different things.
And that's how the final 2 drams of the night are selected.
5-4.
Each person rolls a die. The numbers correspond to a different region of Scotland, and you pick a dram from the region you roll. The final dram, though, is up to you. Any one of the single malts behind the bar. Some of the rarer ones carry an extra $5 price tag. William Roth of Lander, Wyoming, picked the Lafroig Triplewood.
The reason I like it is because my grandfather always smoked a pipe, and as soon as I tasted that, I was brought instantly back to my grandfather's house in Cincinnati, Ohio, with his tobacco pipe, and that was amazing. So the memories is what made me appreciate and love that Scotch the most.
David Olmo and his wife Natalie came from Florida. His grandparents live near Cheyenne, and this was Bob Lick's second trip to Atlantic City.
It was wonderful because we were here just at the end of winter. It was a little snow on the ground, a big fire in the fireplace. It was very nice, and I learned an awful lot about Scotch drinking. Not that I had a lot to learn, but Bob, the host, is a very interesting fellow to speak to. And I spent time working in Scotland and had a few tastes over there, but this is quite an experience. Just a nice little quaint getaway. Really enjoy it.
He would send me newspaper articles about the Scotch tastings here, and after reading them and talking about it with him, we had to plan a trip around it and make sure we were out here for the second Saturday of a month and get down here and do a little Scotch tasting.
Jo Waller's a regular on second Saturdays. She spends about half the year in Atlantic City with her husband.
Well, they were new to Atlantic City, and so I just stopped in one day and said, introduced myself to them and heard about the Scotch tastings and just got excited about this sort of event. I like beer and wine, and why not try Scotch? I'd never had any before, so this was a new experience.
And now you're a veteran, right?
Well, a little bit, yeah. I've been to these tastings, and then with Bob's influence went with a friend to Denver. And then my husband and I went to Victoria a couple years ago, a year and a half ago, for their Scotch tasting. So, yeah, it's been fun.
The 2-bit Cowboy Saloon, as Bob likes to call it, has 86 whiskeys behind the bar. 84 are single malts from Scotland.
We have Wyoming whiskey, which is a bourbon made up in Kirby, Wyoming, as you well know. We have 1 Canadian whiskey, and that's 40 Creek. And that's our whiskey list.
Why 40 Creek?
We have one lady who comes to our tastings from here in Atlantic City who is not a Scotch drinker. She loves Canadian whiskey. And we tried for a while just to rotate. So we'd have, when one bottle would empty, we'd pick up something else and bring it in. And when we brought the 40 Creek in, the first night she tried it, she said, "You don't need to rotate Canadian whiskeys anymore. You just stick with this one."
They generally use bourbon casks to mature their whiskey.
Truth be told, Bob would probably have more than 86 whiskeys at the 2-bit Cowboy Saloon.
Quite a number of our whiskeys, we're the only place in the whole state that has them. The importers that we appreciate working with the most are the ones that make sure we get what we want. Sam Filmus at Impex Beverage is absolutely stellar guy. There are a number of other importers around the country that take very good care of us.
And then there are a few whiskey companies who don't give 2 bits.
Well, there's this huge big company named Diageo. They love the term no allocation for Wyoming. So we quit trying.
But the Miner's Delight is doing just fine with its 86 whiskeys. In fact, Bob and Barbara have added a First Friday tasting each month with more exclusive malts on the menu, and they're used to being confused with that other Atlantic City.
We had a lady call from New York City who wanted to come down for the weekend. And I said, it's a long drive to come down here for the weekend. And she said, well, you're just in Atlantic City. And I said, yes, but we're in Wyoming.
The best weekend to visit? Once or twice a year, the calendar works out just right, when the first Friday and the second Saturday are on the same weekend. Other than that, the tastings go on all year round, whether it's sunny or whether it's snowing. though you may want to check to make sure the road to Atlantic City is plowed first. For more Cask-Strength conversation on whiskeys, with the people who make them and the people who drink them, join us each week for WhiskyCast. In Atlantic City, Wyoming, I'm Mark Gillespie.